Hello, everybody. This is Alejandro Rojas, and I'm with Open Minds TV. And I'm streaming a little earlier than usual. You may have noticed it's not you, it's me. Of course, with the holidays, there's lots of holiday traveling that needs to happen. So I need to do a quick show and get to the airport. However, I wanted to talk to you this week because there is some pretty cool stuff that we've been up to at Open Minds, and also some great UFO news that I wanted to share with you all. So let's get right to it. So let's go to the browser. Hey, that's me. And let's go to Open Minds, because here's where we've got some of the cool stuff. Lately, so there's a lot going on with this Project Blue Book television show that's coming out on the History Channel, and we've got some really cool stuff here. So recently, I interviewed David O'Leary. He's the creator, writer, and producer for the show. Why is this exciting? Because this guy was not like, in fact, I want to show you something here, because I think this kind of shows you a little bit about him and about why he's important to you and to me. If you go here and you look at his credits, Project Blue Book, there's not a whole lot there except for Project Blue Book. Why is that a big deal? Because he's a UFO enthusiast who essentially wanted to do a show. He has worked in television and movies, but he wanted to do a show on UFOs because he's so into the topic. So he wrote this script about Project Blue Book. Probably many of you that are researchers, and certainly myself, have felt Project Blue Book is so full of really intriguing information that the public isn't aware of. If you remember the magazine, Open Minds magazine, one of the articles, columns that I used to do towards the end on a monthly basis were writing about the unknown cases, the cases that couldn't be explained out of Project Blue Book, because so many of them are fascinating. What you have to remember is that they really tried to come up with mundane explanations, and some of them that were pretty good cases, they closed because they just, that could be a plane, that could be a balloon, stuff like that, even though there are very credible sources that felt otherwise, including, some of you may be aware, Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, one of the original founders of that organization, had his own UFO sighting. That Project Blue Book closed and said they had figured out what it was. He did not agree at all and was very frustrated about that. And in fact, if you read Edward J. Ruppelt's book, An Estimate of the Situation, he was the first head of Project Blue Book in 1952. You can read there are many instances like that, and there were many scientists and other serious professionals who didn't trust the Air Force because they felt that they weren't going to take their sightings seriously. So it's a great topic to write about. And David O'Leary, you can see his picture there, decided that he thought that would be a great topic and people should learn more. He wrote the script for the series, he went and shopped it, and he struck gold with the History Channel. They decided to write a series on this, or at least to produce this series, and it's been really cool. So that's what we talked about here. One of the really neat things, I think, is that History, as I've been sharing with you in these past few months, they've been writing these great articles about these real-life cases that they're going to be including in the show. So it's very exciting. We talked to him about that. Of course, there have been complaints, especially with researchers, UFO researchers, that they're not sticking to all of the facts. But we talk about, the difficulties of trying to entertain and also trying to convey a lot of information in a relatively short period of time. If you've ever read a movie script or a television script, you can go download them. Go download like the Star Wars script or something. You'll be shocked by how short it is. They're really not very long. You don't have very much time. You don't have very much dialogue to really fit into a short period of time, especially when you're moving along and you've got all these different sets and everything to do. So it's hard to convey that information. And we talk about how he went about doing this so he can be as accurate as possible, but also entertain people. And so I think people have to keep that in mind. And what it will do, hopefully, is inspire people to look into these actual cases. And history has provided a lot of great information. But of course, websites like Open Minds TV right here provide you with a lot of information as well. So really great interview. I had a lot of fun talking with him. And so, I highly encourage everybody to listen to the podcast. And I'm very excited about next week because I have Paul Hynek. He is the son of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and who is the lead character essentially in Project Blue Book, and who was a real-life astronomer that helped the Air Force investigate UFOs. He began his helping the Air Force as a skeptic. He thought the whole UFO topic was ridiculous. But over time with his investigations, he found, wow, there's really something to this. And he really began civilian investigations into UFOs. After the Air Force closed their program, which he did not think they should do, he began to do scientific evaluation of UFO studies. He created the Close Encounters, table or classification system. That's what it's called. And that, of course, inspired Steven Spielberg to make the movie Close Encounters. And J. Allen Hynek actually has a cameo in there. Well, we're going to be talking to his son about what it was like growing up with Hynek and some of the things that he knew about it. So it's a lot of fun. So that'll be next week, which we will still have the show, even though it's the holidays. Bug. Another cool thing here, an exclusive tip from an exclusive clip from the Bob Lazar movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I think it's definitely worth seeing. Even if you're a skeptic, I think that culturally it's important. This is how Area 51 became famous. Bob Lazar. And you get to hear more from Bob Lazar than you've ever heard before. What's great about this exclusive clip that the filmmaker Jeremy Corbell gave us here at openminds.tv is that it covers one of the most mysterious aspects of the whole Bob Lazar saga, which is this mysterious element 51 that was, or 115, that is supposedly what drove the spacecraft. I'm going to pause it right here. But go watch this clip, because this clip, I know Jeremy and Bob feel, is evidence that the government is keeping an eye on them and going to extremes to listen and monitor what he is doing and saying, because they're trying to get their hands on this alleged element 115 that Bob Lazar has. Now, some of you who have looked up this information or who are science-minded say, element 115 has been created in labs. It only lasts for a short period of time. It's impossible. Bob Lazar could not have any of it. And you're right. As far as we know, it has an extremely short half-life. In fact, I've looked this up. It's a few milliseconds. The very first time it was made in a lab in Russia, it only lasted a few milliseconds. They have gotten it to last longer with different isotopes. So I guess you can arrange. I'm not a scientist. We'd have to ask Chris Cogswell, who we've had on the show before, about some of the details here. But essentially, there are different types where it can last longer. However, the longest they've been able to make it last is something like 850 milliseconds, which is well short of an actual second. So it's just very quick. In fact, it was so quick that at last, when they first made it in the lab, they didn't know what they got. So they had to redo these experiments to prove that it was element 115. And it has been something that has been talked about and theorized since the 70s. So it wasn't, as many believe, Bob Lazar was not the first to mention or talk about element 115. So, but he says that the type of element 115 that they used, that was used in these craft, is stable and can be stable. Jeremy says he talked to several physicists, and some of them did say that would be possible. I don't know. I don't know enough about the physics. Definitely we're going to have Jeremy on, but I think some of the other hard questions that are posed to Bob Lazar were asked by Jeremy in this movie, and that's why I recommend it. I think that it kind of changes the conversation, and it will change the debate that I will have it with Jeremy at one point, where at least I will ask him some of the hard questions around the Bob Lazar case next time I have him on the podcast. So look forward to that. But thank you so much to Jeremy for providing this clip to us. That was really cool of him. So the thing that he was actually trying to promote, which we don't mind, hey, if we can get an early clip, people love watching this stuff. And many of you, I think, feel that Lazar is legit, that there's no way he could have lied about all of this stuff. I don't know. It's really weird, man. It's weird. UFOs are weird, dude. But here's a link to Jeremy's website, and just starting the other day when he gave us this to post on iTunes, Amazon, and Vimeo, you can now rent the movie. So if for some reason you felt it was too expensive, you didn't want to buy it, which they allowed you to download when the movie premiered a few weeks ago, now you can rent it. So you can pay less, like $6 to watch an HD version of the film if you just kind of want to watch it once or twice and you don't need to own it or anything. For historic purposes, I had to download it, of course. So that's what that is. That's something really cool that you could see at our website. What else? Okay, what else is some other important news? Kind of a good segue to the guy who wrote the story about Bob Lazar and made Bob Lazar famous. Oops, I'm going to take one quick second, actually, to see chatters. Let's say yo to the chatters. Alejandro, I'm trying to remember how to spell your name. You just spelled it, dude. There must be a way to extend the life. The government probably has plenty. Space Force. They may. Maybe. So the guy who broke the story about Bob Lazar is George Knapp. George Knapp is an investigative reporter out of Las Vegas, an award-winning investigative reporter. Very cool guy, very important fellow. And like I tell people, if you want the latest on, this news that's been coming out about the government UFO program that has been ran, then you've got to follow George Knapp because he's been releasing the latest and greatest information. And sure enough, he's released more. He had a new interview with Luis Elizondo. I'll show you a little bit of that in just a second. And Luis Elizondo is the guy who used to run this UFO program. In fact, he retired last October in 2017, and so it's been over a year now. And then in December of 2017, about a year ago, he started talking about this program, and the New York Times article came out about it. And Elizondo has been working with Tom DeLonge with this project called To the Stars Academy to look into UFOs and UFO information. And that's what we're going to talk about here because there's two things that are important here. First of all, you can see the title of this story is More Details on Government UFO Findings Could Be Forthcoming, because George Knapp did interview Elizondo. And he said, he asked him, is more information forthcoming? And Elizondo said yes. This is what Elizondo said. And I'm going to read this because I think this is important. When you say something big is coming, what does that mean? Elizondo says, as a career intelligence officer, let's see, I don't want to read this story. Well, I'm going to read you this quote here. I'm going to come back to the main picture. Hi. So I read this to you. So, I'm sorry for bouncing around here because I want to show you something else. So there's this story essentially about what Elizondo said, but luckily they posted the entire interview right here. So you can see the interview with George Knapp talking to Elizondo. But I want to read this to you. I'll put this up here. Oh, that's kind of neat, huh? I'll put that up there while we read this. Here's what Elizondo said, and I think this is really important. When you say something big is coming, that could mean a bunch of things. From my perspective, my goal has always been being able to get the right information to the right people in the right places. That's really what it is about for me, and informing those individuals so decisions can be made so we can really take a look at this issue from a holistic, a collective perspective, and then have that information get to a point where the government is doing its job and informing the people, right? It shouldn't be the world according to Luis Elizondo. It shouldn't be Lou informing everybody. It should be those people in those positions that have the authority to inform the American people. My job is to facilitate that process. But I think in the course of doing that, we have made significant progress in certain key areas. Here's a quote from the article. I think we have a much better understanding in the depth and scope that the Department of Defense has played in recent times, not historical 40s and 50s. I'm talking about very recent regarding the UFO phenomena. I think people will be surprised just how frequent and the volume in which these things are apparently recorded and observed by active duty military people on missions around the world, by the way. So essentially what he's saying here, and you'll see, lots of mistypings and stuff because I just transcribed that very quickly, and I'll read you some more here. It's really important. What Lou is saying is, really, he's been forced into this position because he's the guy who came out and started talking about this Pentagon program. He's kind of had to play as a spokesperson. This is about to end, so I'm just going to pause it here so we can keep him on the screen. And which I think he's arguing is not necessarily fair. And I've talked to him personally many times. Luckily, I've even got to have some just casual dinners with him and stuff, meet him near his home, and we've had a good time discussing these things. He shared that, that wasn't his role, that wasn't his intent, but people are just starved for information, and they keep trying to pull information out of him. And of course, as we've seen, people have been really disappointed somewhat about not enough information coming out or not feeling that they agree with the information or like the information. But you know what? That wasn't his job. His job is not to inform you. His job has nothing to do with that. And what he's doing by informing people is he's kind of just taking it upon himself. He is risking and in some cases damaging his relationships with his colleagues, previous colleagues who mostly he was friends with. And I guess a lot of those relationships, although strained, have been repaired somewhat. And we'll get somewhat into that as well. But he's taken it upon himself to share with the public what he knows. So you can get upset if you want. You can do with that what you will. But what he's saying here is that, it's not his job. You don't need to hear from Luis Elizondo. He's not an official. He is just a guy who worked on this program who is sharing what he feels he has been cleared or it's okay for him to share without overstepping the bounds of his agreement, his top secret clearances, and so forth. And he's doing this of his own volition. I think that's really important. The other important thing is that, people are clamoring for information from To the Stars Academy saying, give us information, what's going on here. It doesn't seem like you're doing anything, but it's only been a year. I think what we have received them has been quite substantial. There's only a handful of people working on this project. And this is what he's saying, that a lot of what they've done is behind the scenes is to give information to the right people, like he says, in the government that have the authority to release this information, to discuss this to the public, the people who should be, organizing that information to present to the public. And they've been essentially attempting to grease the wheels, my words, to get these people more excited and more to see that there's something legitimate here, that people do want information and there's information to be had. And they've made a lot of progress. That sort of work that they're doing in the background, of course, we're not going to be privy to, nor are they going to want to share any of that with us, the who they're talking to, the when they're talking to, whomever. In some cases, I had a podcast with Nick Pope where we were able to discuss how there has been some information to come out. So we've seen some congressional notes, for instance, that mention being briefed by these individuals. And we do know that some of the subcommittees in Congress have been briefed on this topic recently. And so that's what they're doing. That's what they feel their job is to inform. That's what he does. So that's another thing that's really kept them busy. And I know I've been saying that over time, but now we have this from Lou as well. And I think one of the other dangers people have is not understanding when Lou is speculating. That's what it is speculation. Lou, especially at the beginning when he came out, was very careful, and he didn't want to speculate. You might remember, I can think of an interview on CNN where they were trying to pull this speculation out of him, and he resisted because that's not in his nature. His job is to share facts as an intelligence officer. But over time he has speculated, and then people make a big deal about, some of these ideas, almost like they're gospel. But George also asked about this physical material that they're investigating, and here's what Lou said about that. There are a lot of things out there we're looking into to include tangibles in a real sense that will hopefully allow us to have a more comprehensive conversation. I don't want to lead the cart before the horse. I think that's an important statement. There is a lot of analysis. There's a lot of homework that has to be done. And the most responsible thing I can do right now is say one thing one way, and the most irresponsible thing I can do right now is to say one thing one way, and it turns out to be something else. So we remain cautiously optimistic, and we are going to leave no stone unturned. And so far, the stones that we have turned over, some have yielded some really pretty fantastic results, but we have more stones to turn over. So, like he says here, the worst thing he can do is to say one thing and then it turns out to be something else. And that's what people are clamoring for, is for them to give them information, to say, tell us what this is. Tell us what analysis you've done. But that would be irresponsible, as he says. I think that they've learned also the very little speculation they've done about the materials and things that they've looked at have been blown out of proportion. And so they've had some hard lessons, and now you can see here they're being more disciplined about not speculating or sharing information too prematurely. And I think people need to understand that. The way science works is something has to be analyzed. That is just a piece of information that needs to be built upon and verified. And until you have all of this put together, this case put together, then before that, all you have is guesswork. And guesswork can lead to problems, just like he's outlining right here. But as far as their work getting information out there, Lou says, from my perspective, that's a huge accomplishment. He's talking about, getting this information to the decision makers out there. At the same time, you have to respect these individuals' privacy. We have to respect their professional positions and allow them to collect as much data as they can before they really do anything with it. Keep in mind, there is a lot of data out there, and it would almost be a derelict of duty for anybody to make a decision preemptively without having all of the necessary data in front of them. And I think that's another wise statement. And it also gives us, insight into that world, that they're going to be very careful about what they're saying, and they're going to need to have all the information in front of them before they speak. That's a responsible thing to do. That is what he's used to in the intelligence world, and that's what they'll be doing going forward. And I think that's very wise. If we get very little information, if the information comes less often, but it's more, pertinent, it's more credible and substantial information, I would certainly rather have the quality than the quantity, because Lord knows we've got enough quantity in regards to speculation when it comes to the UFO phenomena. And it goes beyond speculation to be just, people proclaiming all of these wild, crazy ideas without any evidence to substantiate them, and then proclaiming that, this is real and this is what's right, instead of doing the hard, rigorous, disciplined thing, which is to wait till you have all of the information before you share that. So I think that personally, this information and this video is extremely insightful, And I feel that it really gives us a very good look into the day-to-day. People are asking, well, what do you do every day? What is To the Stars doing? Well, here's what they're doing. They're collecting information, maybe information that you already have, maybe information that, in fact, he even talks about that. He's talking about how new information is going to be coming out that's going to surprise a lot of people. This is another quote. I think some people might be a little bit apprehensive, scratch their head and think, what does this mean for the rest of us? Other people might say, aha, I told you so. So it depends on who the audience will be listening, but there is something for everybody. So that they're going to be sharing information. And for those of you who get frustrated, I don't know. There's people that are just negative about anything. No, anything anybody could say, certainly anything I could say, they're going to be negative about and bash. And there's nothing you can really do about that. But I think what's important here is the effect that this program has and this information has had on the wider general public and our culture, because it has opened up. And, I'll go back here to Open Minds, because in this interview here that I have with David O'Leary, and let me show you something else. I also have an interview I'm uploading right now with this gentleman. Let me bring a picture up. This guy right here. Actually, I'm going to go to the page because I'm going to show you some better pictures of him, which the ladies will appreciate because he's a very handsome young man. He actually was on the Vampire Diaries. But this gentleman, so I got a short interview. This is Michael Malarkey, who's one of the lead actors. So he plays Captain Quinn, who kind of is the Air Force on the show. There's Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who is played by Aidan Gillen. And I'll bring up this picture because you can see both right here. He's playing Hynek. And then this is Quinn, who's the Air Force officer, played by Matthew Malarkey. And he's the guy kind of trying to debunk it and trying to say, hey, there's nothing to this. He represents, that kind of contingency in the Air Force that there certainly was during Project Blue Book, while Hynek is the more intelligent, kind of studious investigator. Great show. The dynamics, I think, are really neat. You've kind of got a mixture of a Scully and Mulder in Hynek, and then you have more of a, I don't know, a bit of a Scully, but more of also a little bit of a smoking man, maybe in Malarkey, to put it in X-Files terms. But a really great show. But both of these gentlemen, or at least I should say both David O'Leary, who I've spoken to, and then also in this interview that I'm getting ready to post, so you can see it's finished here. I just got to finish it up, and I'll be posting this in this interview with Michael Malarkey. It's an audio interview that I put some pictures and stuff to. It's about 10 minutes. That they both were very influenced by Elizondo coming out in that New York Times article. And, it's showing how really there's a backbone. This project might not have happened if it wasn't for everything that Elizondo is doing, and Tom DeLonge with To the Stars and all of these guys. So you can get as frustrated as you want, but I can only see that personally as a positive when it comes for people who are interested in taking the UFO phenomena seriously. And I do know that Mr. George Knapp, who of course wrote this story with his partner Matt Adams here, feels the same way. So there you go. Let me see if there's any questions. I got a couple minutes here. Oh, somebody's got to go. Let me go back to the main. Let's see. All right. Some people appreciating the facts. Someone saying same old stuff. Well, again, not everybody can't. And I don't know. And there is that contingency out there. There are those people who are saying, hey, this is just the same old stuff. We've heard all this for years. And I'm sorry, but that's just not true. That's completely false. We haven't heard about this all for years. This is all brand new. all of this. This video with Elizondo saying what he's saying, it's all brand new. Elizondo's coming out and talking about his program. This has only been in the last year. If you're not going to get excited about this sort of thing, maybe you should go into a different area of interest, because nothing's going to surprise you, or you're not going to appreciate nothing in this field. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I got to go. I got to get people to the airport, and then I got to pack because I'm flying. We're all flying all over the place for the holidays. But I hope that you all have a wonderful holiday season, and I will have a new podcast up on, it'll be on KGRA Monday night, and then it'll be up for everybody else on Tuesday. And I should be able to do another one of these live shows next week as well. And then we've got more exciting things planned, so stay tuned. And do keep an eye out tonight for my Malarkey interview. So thank you all so much for watching. And I guess until next time, take it easy, people. Ba-ba-da-doo-doo-doo. This is my outro music. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-doo. Boo-doo-boo-doo-boo-doo. Boop, boop.